So how can the Episcopal Preaching Foundation help? Without question, it already is. In the lay preaching program that you all have created, it is the first step in what will be many, I'm certain, to saying to dioceses across the country, help us identify lay people in your congregations who can step into the role of a preacher. Help us identify people who can be trained up and that want to do this in helping to preach the gospel to our congregations. And whether that's a parish that has 5 clergy people in it, or a parish that has 1, or there's a bivocational priest, or they're yoked to 3 others and they get a priest once a month or once a quarter, that's a benefit all around, because we know that the future of the Episcopal Church won't be every parish having full-time clergy who can preach. And even if they have full-time clergy that can preach, can you expect that full-time clergy to preach every Sunday? So having that lay pool of folks who can step in and be helpful, critical. And EPF is already on the path with the lay preaching program. And I can only imagine the wonderful growth that's going to occur after the success of these first couple of years. I've had clergy say to me, one of the benefits of having a lay preacher is that that person is not coming from the paradigm that I am, where every Sunday I'm following the lectionary, I'm doing exactly. Now, of course, they're going to incorporate whatever the lectionary reading is, but we're trained in a certain way that a lay person isn't. And those same clergy people that I've talked to about this have said it's so important that we not encourage these people to try to mimic us. Let the layperson be a layperson in the pulpit. They don't need to be vested like we are. They don't need to feel like they're the clergy person for the day. They don't need to feel like they're a mini priest, because they aren't. And that's a good thing. And the person I was talking to about this said, and make sure that you always say, and that's a good thing, because it's bringing a different perspective to the pulpit and to the congregation that's hearing that. It's that personal perspective that the lay person is bringing to their sermon, to their homily that they're sharing on a particular Sunday. We've got the good news. We've got wonderful things to share with the world, and the Episcopal Church, if we stay true to who we are, where we come from, we have a wonderful message for this world that people need to hear, want to hear, and that we will share. We are convinced that the laity is the future of our church in terms of making sure that it's thriving at the local level. We know that the clergy are already overburdened. There's clergy retirements. There are fewer clergy to backfill those roles. We're having bivocational clergy. All of these are good ways of managing the needs to have a professional clergy, but that means that laity need to step into leadership roles that perhaps in the past they wouldn't have. The Episcopal Church has always had a strong lay leadership component, whether you're on our vestry, or you're a warden, or you're on the finance committee, the treasurer, any of those types of activities. But over time, clergy assume more and more of those responsibilities. Often, the lay people just saying, well, you know best. You're wearing the collar, right? So we actually believe that the laity need to step back up and say, we're here to be helpful. We're leaders in our community, we're leaders in our businesses, we're leaders in our nonprofits that we work with, and we can help to run this parish effectively, and then strengthen that parish for its ministry to the community, being part of that community, which we're convinced, I am convinced, is the future of the Episcopal Church, local ministry. Almost universally, the clergy that I work with are anxious for and want lay people to be more involved. And it's often, and this has been true in parishes that I've been a member of, where they have to go in and tap somebody on the shoulder and say, will you be on the vestry? People aren't just walking forward. So I don't think that the clergy are hesitant to do it. It's just that often after dipping that bucket in the well so many times and coming up without much water, they're just like, I'll just do it myself. So the laity need to understand that there is a responsibility on our part to help in the running of the church, and be willing to take up the call if it's the clergy that ask, or be willing to say, hey, how can I be helpful? The Episcopal Parish Network has been around for 38 years. We're just a little bit older than the Episcopal Preaching Foundation, founded back in 1985, although there were conversations before our founding about this topic. Originally, it was a group of endowed parishes who came together to imagine how to use their endowments in ways that could benefit the ministry of the church going forward, rather than what had become more common, which was just using as much endowment as you could for operational expenses. Over the ensuing years, we became much more focused on the basics of running a church and not just how to manage your endowment. So your parish administration, your stewardship efforts, your HR with your staff, how rectors and deans assume leadership roles, associates, how they're trained up in things that are not necessarily related to the theological aspects of being clergy, and of course lifting up the laity to be the leaders that they are of our vestries, our wardens, those types of roles within the church. So today we host the largest annual conference in the Episcopal Church. In pre-COVID years, we have about 800 people who come together somewhere around the country for several hope-filled days of learning from each other, networking with each other, being together, and leaving with joy in their hearts and hope for the future of the Episcopal Church.